And there he is. Perfect.
Is that helping any?
Oh, it's perfect, man. It's
All right.
absolutely perfect. All right, there you go. You did it. You're in. You're looking good. We're happy to
Well, thank
see
you.
you. We're happy to have you. And I've just managed to ask. Oh, Bingo Lombardi says, "Don't worry about it, Bubble Man. We're here for all of it." And this is the beautiful thing about our audience. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to nail perfection. We just want to make sure that we're present and we're delivering what we say we're going to delivering. My doctor told me I had joint problems. He told me to roll them tighter. That's a little Persephone Lux has been dropping the jokes nonstop. So here we go. This is the
Well,
first question, Dr. Allen, from Ty Pill, a member. Is there any emerging discoveries about the endocannabinoid signaling system? Remember Ty to add signaling that excites you. Is there anything new that you've kind of heard about that is excited you? Or really maybe it's just us sharing this information. Whatever it is, we're wondering what you're thinking about it.
what is what's the new science that excites me? It's probably the non-medical science about the cannabis industry that's advanced to preserve terpenes and acknowledge the entourage effect and mechanical separation and the different forms of solvent extraction and solventless extraction. That's skyrocketed in the last 10 years, obviously. So
Yes,
that's new and
absolutely.
exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That is. I love that you started it with the preservation of aromatic compounds like terpenes. This is a huge aspect that when the medical system gets involved and understands that, first of all, what the medical system is going to want to do from an extraction standpoint is they're going to want to stabilize the medicine. The medicine, cannabis medicine, is not stable. It's volatile. In fact, the aromatic compounds are called volatiles. So by nature, they are the opposite of stable. And so letting them know that the only real reason to achieve the effect of appearing stable is a cold supply chain, and you mentioned that perfectly in your response to preserve terpenes. Now, Persephone Lux, who's a member as well, has a question for you. Is there a way for some of us to register for a long-term study? We can start by getting checkups and filling questionnaires regarding cardiac, circulation, etc. Checking every year for 10 years. Wow, that's
Yeah.
a vision right there.
Well, it's illegal for doctors to give patients any kind of cannabinoid products because we all have DEA license to be able to write a prescription. And since it's a federal law, federally illegal, we can't give cannabis to a patient. And so there's no studies that you can join. Um, Now, there are some studies. LV Musica is a federal cannabis patient, and when they first started the program, they required the doctors do a yearly exam and do blood tests and a bunch of other stuff and send it into the federal government um, for this program to investigational new drug program was the name of it, the IND program. And so LV Musica used to get an exam once a year and had blood tests and things like that and a physical exam. But your doctor can't give you any cannabis, and that's what we're going to try to change.
Right. No, beautiful. I think that he was kind of maybe thinking about like, can we do our own little, like, not necessarily, and I could be assuming, but obviously doctors aren't allowed to prescribe cannabis, but you think there'd be some way to, I guess it would all be anecdotal if you did it outside of the system, even if it was still being done the proper way. But it's a
Well,
cool question, Persephone. We appreciate it. Cake in a Cup says he would argue that signaling is redundant unless there is more than one endocannabinoid system. But sometimes I just like to argue, he says. So I think he
yeah.
said it for fun.
Well, as I mentioned before, I call it cannabinoid because it's not cannabis.
It's
And I
cannabis.
think this is scientific propaganda. So doctors and people that study this, it's against the law. They can't even say the word marijuana, much less cannabis. And so the most famous person involved in this was Raphael Mechoulam, and he calls it the endocannabinoid. And it's not cannabis, it's cannabis. And so I think the endocannabinoid is a more proper pronunciation of this word.
Cannabinoid.
And I think signaling system has to be included because this is a chemical communication system that the body uses that people are completely unaware of. The endocannabinoid, if you say, oh, I'm a professor in the endocannabinoid system, they have no idea what that is. But if you say, I'm a professor in the endocannabinoid signaling system, they kind of get an idea. Signaling system, what is that? That must be important. I don't know about that.
Right. Because
And
they don't
so
even
it
know
makes
about
them
the system.
investigate, what is he talking about signaling? And it leads them to a path to find out that this is a chemical communication system.
Yep.
And your body has a communication system. So the cells have to sense what's going on in the body. So they have to sense how much sugar's in the body. Okay. And there's a
Hmm.
way they can do that. And so all the cells have glucose receptors on them, and they have insulin receptors. And so the insulin is a particular molecule that is shaped in a certain way and it has a certain charges. And it goes on to a chemical antenna called a insulin receptor. And this is just a protein that's folded in a certain way. And the folds on the receptor, the antenna, are the opposite of the folds and charges on the molecule. And so when insulin floats around and it comes close to the insulin receptor, it's attracted to the insulin receptor and binds onto the insulin receptor for a certain period of time. And that time, everybody knows, scientists know the binding time, and it has to come off the receptor. But anyway, when it does that, when insulin binds onto the insulin receptor, it causes glucose to go into the cell. It drops your blood glucose, and it provides the cell with glucose it needs for metabolism. And so this is a chemical communication. So cannabinoids have the same thing and fit into cannabinoid receptors like a lock and key. So only insulin binds onto the insulin receptor like a
Hmm.
lock and a key. Only cannabinoids bind onto the cannabinoid receptors, just like a
Right.
lock and key. And this is why cannabis does not interfere with pharmaceutical drugs, because pharmaceutical drugs are different molecules and they don't bind on to the receptor like a lock and key. And so
Right.
that's why there's minimal, if any, interaction between cannabis and any pharmaceutical. And it's my personal advice. This is not medical advice, but my personal advice is if you tell your doctor that you use cannabis, it's not going to help you. It's going to be used against you because the doctors involved in the pharmaceutical industry, and they're going to suppress anything about cannabis, and they're going to try to make cannabis as evil as possible, that it makes men grow breasts and all kinds of crazy suggestions.
Ja
And
over evil.
Jah over evil. So God over evil. And so and we hope God blesses what we're doing and helps us spread this news and this scientific information that they're actually trying to suppress. We're going to try to expose this to other humans, and they're going to teach their doctors about this. And their doctors won't have any idea what they're talking about, and the doctors will be embarrassed that the patients know more about a certain type of physiology than the doctors were taught in medical school. And I can say this because I did the study where we called 157 medical schools and asked them if they were teaching this science to the new medical students. And the answer was only 13% of medical schools even mention this complex system that regulates all physiology and regulates homeostasis. And so they're not teaching this to doctors, and they will look at you like you're a little bit wacko if you try to educate them about stuff that they don't know about.
For sure. We got some other questions backing up here. We have Kyle Nielsen who asked, I'm looking for insight into patients like myself that require very large doses compared to the typical patient. A typical day averages 3 to 5 grams of THC per day. I do not get high at these doses. That's pretty incredible. I always think that and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Allen. I've always wondered if it's in the metabolization of cannabis, especially oral cannabis, when you're consuming oral cannabis and you're not feeling it. I always think that those people metabolize really, really slow. And the people
Yeah,
who eat tiny amounts metabolize hyper fast and they feel all of it at once. Whereas the other guys, they can eat like 800 milligrams and it just
you're
like,
you're touching on the truth right here.
okay, so maybe
And
you can give me a
so
better.
so here's the endocannabinoid signaling system is a complex system of enzymes that make your own cannabinoids. They're endogenous or endocannabinoids. Uh, and anandamide and 2-AG, 2-arachidonyl glycerol is the two known endocannabinoids. There may be others. And so you have a system that makes your own cannabinoids, a system that transports them from one place to another, and then another enzyme system that degrades them. And you can look this up. It's FAAH, FAAH, fatty acid amide hydrolase. And what this enzyme is to do is your body makes these cannabinoids when they're needed. And they're only needed for a certain period of time. And the FAAH enzyme is made to degrade your endocannabinoids so they don't hang around forever.
Ooh.
And here's what I learned. I had a 2-pound Chihuahua, and we give the puppy a little piece of cannabis cookie. Okay. Now, animals have the same systems that we do, not exactly the same, but they have similar systems to us. And the poor puppy was affected for 3 days and couldn't hardly walk. I had to feed it water and stuff. It was a severe lesson for me that apparently this type of puppy, this Chihuahua, has an enzyme defect that the FAAH enzyme doesn't degrade the cannabinoids like
Oh.
anybody else. And so what that would also mean is there's a variation in different species of animals. There's a variation in different humans. And some people will have revved up enzyme systems, and some people will have degraded enzyme systems that don't work perfectly or work at a much slower rate.
Nice. That's great information, honestly. I wonder if that's happening in humans that are just so affected by oral consumption of cannabis.
Yeah, and it's well known that if you use a strain of cannabis for a period of time, that it has less and less effect. And if you change to a different strain, a different cultivar,
Mhm.
you can have get high again and have a different set of effects to you. So there is a um, temperance to the effect of cannabinoids. And so if you're adding a whole bunch of cannabinoids and your FAAH system is set up for just endocannabinoids, and you're piling in a whole bunch of other cannabinoids, it might make the body say, well, wait a minute, we got too much on board. We need to have more FAAH enzyme, or we
Hmm.
need it to work better. And
I
so the
w
body with homeostasis would say, wait a minute, you're giving me too much cannabinoids. We need to slow the roll and degrade them faster.
So, is there a FA enzyme product that could be used to take away people's uncomfortably high experiences when people get too high? Is there a product that could be made like a FA enzyme gummy that you just eat afterwards and it
Well,
dissipates the
yeah,
intensity, or would it take too long?
that may happen, but you have to be careful because human scientists think they have the knowledge that God has, and they don't.
Right, right.
And so uh, they've tried to make um, they
We've
make
we've got
designer
we've got
drugs.
a Dr. DGC Jeff who's saying that he says though FA mainly affects anandamide, not so much THC. Interesting.
Well, if you smoke THC, it has a 4 to 6 hour effect, and then it's gone. So there's something in the body that allows it to hang around for 4 to 6 hours. And then there's a system, whether it's FA or something else, there's a system that naturally makes the product doesn't have its same effect for longer than about 6 hours or so. And that's just a thumbnail generalization, but um, this science is not fully delineated, and um, there are people that don't have functioning endocannabinoid systems at all. And we're going to talk about that in a future video about knockout mice and knockout humans. There are humans that have deficiencies in the endocannabinoid signaling system, and it makes them think differently than people that have a revved up endocan. And it's proven, everybody knows that if you smoke pot, you don't think the same as people that
No, but isn't it interesting that people are they've always attributed it to, oh, you'll think differently if you smoke pot. No one's ever said, no, you'll think differently if you don't, right? They want to make the difference. It's like
exactly.
this is
They
the
try to
medicine that we
demonize
need,
it.
and yeah, this is what we need. This naturally goes into our bodies. It's a system. It helps a system that our body, like you mentioned. I've always thought of the endocannabinoid system as a crank on a bicycle, with the immune system and the central nervous system being the pedals. And when everything's beautiful inside that endocannabinoid system, you have homeostasis. Once it starts getting problematic in there, you start getting grinding in there in the crank, and now it's no longer this smooth bicycle ride of life, but it's this difficulty of, endocannabinoid deficiency, which is endless inflammation and endless potential disease.
That's a great explanation. And so all disease is inflammation. And apparently the endocannabinoid signaling system is a mechanism to adjust the immune response to lower the inflammation on a lot of different diseases, and that's why cannabis works on so many different problems, because it lowers the inflammation from a lot of different things.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, a bunch of conversation going on in the room right now. They're having a little conversation about just a whole bunch of things. A lot tolerance. A lot of people are talking about their tolerance right now.
Yes.
We still have about 10 minutes left. If anyone has any more questions they want to talk about here, we've got 92 people watching live right now, so appreciate everyone. Persephone Lux, cytokines. Cytokines.
Cytokine.
Cytokines. You want to talk about cytokines, or you want him to
Yes.
yeah, give a
Okay.
little explanation.
All right. Well, um, I read a long time ago that CBD inhibits cytokine storm, and that struck me. And it also inhibits uh, disseminated intravascular coagulation caused by the cytokine storm. So DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation, and platelet plugging. And so CBD stops this cascade of things that happen. And I wrote an article based on the fact that CBD might be useful in the treatment of Ebola virus on this scientific basis. And what happens is you have a couple different immune systems, the cellular immune system and the humoral immune system. And so the white cells are bouncing around. And if they detect any foreign protein that's not self, what they do is they start an immune reaction. They start making antibodies against this protein. And if the cell bumps into that same protein after it's got the antibodies and stuff on it, it busts open its cell wall and it releases all these enzymes inside the white cell. And the enzymes are proteolytic enzymes. That means they dissolve or digest protein. And so they're made to digest or eat any foreign invader, whether it's a bacteria or a virus. And so when the cell busts open and releases the cytokines, there's a bunch of different ones. And they're also signaling molecules. They signal to the rest of the body, wait a minute, we found something over here, it looks dangerous, and it draws other white cells into the area. So it's in a trap, it draws them in. It's a signaling protein, come help us. And the other white cells come in the neighborhood, and what they do is one white cell busts open, and it signals to all the other ones to come in. They bust their stuff open, and all of a sudden you got a ton of proteolytic enzymes running around in your bloodstream.
Hmm.
And in the case of Ebola, these proteolytic enzymes eat the glue that glues the cells together in the blood vessel. And so it breaks that space between them. And what happens is at first serum can seep through that space, and then blood cells eventually get, well, and that's what it causes you to bleed out. Now, when the cytokine happens, so one burst and a million other white cells do the same thing, and that's why they call it cytokine storm. So it's like a nuclear reaction. One starts a million, and the million starts releasing all these enzymes and stuff, and that causes the platelets to glue together, and they form platelet clots. It's technically called DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation. And so you get platelet clots in every vessel that you have.
Hmm.
Okay. That the ones in your brain, the ones in your lungs, the ones in your kidneys, everywhere, the
Just
ones
a
in your heart.
nightmare.
And so this massive release of cytokines causes blood clotting, and that's what kills you. It's not the virus protein doesn't kill you. It's your hyperimmune reaction to the protein. And so if you can quiet the immune reaction, you can lessen the amount of blood clots you're going to have. And so that's
Excellent.
why, and that's exact cannabis and the endocannabinoid signaling system is made to quiet a hyperreactive immune system. And if you think about it, when the sperm enters the ovum in conception, the sperm is a foreign protein. It's from the man,
Yeah.
and the egg is from the female. And there should be a natural rejection of the sperm because it's a foreign protein. And so they found experimentally if you block the ECS, that sperm does not enter the ovum. So you have to have a functioning ECS for conception to occur. And that fact alone makes cannabis a metabolic essential. If you don't have it working right, you can't produce another human being.
Very cool. I want to show a quick little video because I saw it recently, which is this flash of light at the moment of conception that occurs. I'm going to show it to you guys right now. And this is basically, this is the sperm is going to hit that ovum and that egg, and it's going to boom. You see that flash of light? That flash of light, and the light has entered, and the light world. What does it say? It says something about how it let there be light and there was light, right? Genesis 1:3. So this is a flash of light that is happening at a microscopic point in time. Boom, there it is. And what it does is it instantly hardens the ovum and does not allow any more sperm to get into the egg. I saw that the other day and was blown away by it. We only have a few minutes left, and JVW had a great question on IVB. How will cannabis-based products ever pass stability testing zone IVB? With these volatile compounds, it's really hard to keep it under these circumstances and to keep the full live spectrum.
I'm unfamiliar with IVB.
IVB, he is unfamiliar. Well, we will find out if we can get it cleared out. Otherwise, we've got room for maybe one more question. Would love to see more content like this, especially with the interactions with the community and the questions. Also, would love to know if he has these convos with his colleague doctors. That's also from JVW.
All right. Well, here's a good story. When I quit doing heart surgery, I had to find a new career, and I couldn't go to another city and do for a lot of reasons. I'll explain that later. But basically, I knew I had to do change tracks. So I started studying about cannabis science because I was interested in it. And what I did was I got a bunch of copies of all the patents on cannabis, and I started training myself about this subject. And this isn't taught in medical school, so you had to train yourself with this. And I found these articles which still flabbergast me today. Why don't people know about this? So one of the article we presented this proves CBD and THC both decrease the size of a stroke by 50% and decrease the size of a heart attack by 66% with photographic evidence of cannabis efficacy in stopping a heart attack. This is not magic. This is true. We got photographic evidence. And so I knew about this. And in one of the patents, it even says directly, well, this has potential. It could be used in coronary artery bypass grafts. And that was my career. So I knew about this long time ago, and I couldn't tell any doctors about this because it would affect my income, because you're not even allowed to say the word marijuana or cannabis in medical societies. They freak out because of the drug war propaganda so strong, it prevents people from thinking. And so I was talking to this legal friend of mine, Carl Olson, the other day, and he's a legal person from Illinois, and he's been battling the medical board and the pharmaceutical board about legalizing cannabis in Illinois. And he tells me, he says, look, Dave, the medical efficacy of cannabis has never had anything to do with the legalization. And the reason is because the law says cannabis has no legitimate medical uses and not safe under doctor's supervision. And that's the law. And if you tell me something that goes against the law, I don't want to hear anything you got to say. That's just gibberish, bullshit excuses. We don't want to know the science because we don't want to learn the science, because if we learn the science, it goes against the law, and the law is the law, and anything you got to say to fight the law is wrong.
Yeah, there's a whole mentality in human beings. It's probably part of that mentality that occurs in your brain when it rusts out and you're completely endocannabinoid deficient. You start like wanting to like police people. You start wanting to like enforce rules that
Right.
don't make sense. It's like, yeah, it's the rule, it's the law, but it doesn't, I mean, it was a law that you could own slaves at one point in time. Like there's all sorts of laws that are unjust and that don't make sense. And as times change and as we learn and get more data and get more understanding, that obviously laws can be changed.
And this is related to the amygdala and the study on knockout mice, which proves that if you're endocannabinoid deficient, you do repetitive destructive behavior despite what the environment is telling you that what you're doing is not working. It doesn't matter. You can't extinguish the idea that this is how it used to be. And if anybody tries to say it's different, then you ignore that, because you can't bring in new concepts. And we're going to talk about the knockout mice. And so people should learn about endocannabinoid deficient mice and what the knockout mice prove. And so I believe that there's knockout humans that have deficient endocannabinoid signaling system, and they are driven by their amygdala, and they have the inability or lessened ability to think properly because the fear organ of the brain is telling me, oh, wait a minute, you don't want to go there. That's dangerous. You don't want to learn this. And so these people, and Dr. Melamede referred to them as backwards looking people or BLPs, and forward looking people are the people that are cannabinoid endowed, and I'm cannabinoid endowed.
Yeah.
And the people who are cannabinoid deficient are the backward looking people. And they and
Right.
he thought that the backward looking people went into jobs that would lead them into being in law enforcement and politics, where they try to interfere with other people. They have to be the boss, I guess. I don't know, but that remains to be seen. But there are people that don't have function proper functioning endocannabinoid signaling system, and adding cannabis helps them moderate this communication system.
Beautiful. Wonderful. I love it. I think we are pretty much at the end. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to continue on. I have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. It sounds like everyone absolutely loved the information. They love having access to you. They love hearing you talk. So what we're going to do is obviously for the members, I get that you're supporting us and I love that, but we are trying to make some members only content so you feel like you're getting something that's a bit special. That's what these Q&As were supposed to be. I'm desperately trying to figure out the logistics of using YouTube so I can go live with these private membership only members type thing. I appreciate all the members who said it was no problem that we could go public today and make this available for everyone. So thank you all so very much for that. We're going to be back. We're going to try and do a couple of shows a week in regards to the Cannabis Journal Club. And then maybe at the end of the week, we will do a question and answer. So if you guys have questions early in the week that you've secured, you can send those questions to me at bcbubbleman@icloud.com. And you can send them also to Dr. Allen if you would like to give your email right now.
My email is Cali 215 DOC. That's Cali 215 doc at gmail.com.
So just send the questions to both of us. And if we can, at the end of the week, we'll pick the best ones and we'll get into them and create these conversations. Really, truly, thank you so much to the 112 of you that are watching live right now and the thousands of you that will surely watch this in the upcoming days. Thank you so much, Dr. David Allen, for just being you. And I'm glad you're here on Earth. I'm glad that, I know the journey you had to take to get to where you are right now was a difficult one, but we're going to make sure that we use Cannabis Journal Club to make sure that that journey was for naught, that there will be a value in the suffering that was experienced through the prohibition of cannabis to move ourselves into a better future together. So I really appreciate
and remember, Jah over evil. Live
Jah
it.
over evil, live it.
God over evil. Live it.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.